Alrighty then. Here are some of the microscopic organisms I've seen lately. This is a rather large segmented worm called a black worm. And there's a roundworm, also known as a nematode. There are 10,000 species or so of them, and I'm not sure what particular species this is. But doesn't it move elegantly? And this is a flatworm called a planarian, sometimes stenostomum, mesostomum, depending upon where their pharynx is. They have only one opening, and I think they're adorable. And they're usually pretty small, smaller than the roundworms and the blackworms, although some roundworms are very tiny. And there is a Nauplius and a planarian, a very curious planarian, I might add. And there's its peristaltic movement. And there was a Clostridium algae or diatom down there, green algae. And there's the Nauplius, which is an immature form of a cyclops. And there goes the curious planarian. I wonder what Naupliuses taste like. Nauplius is a arthropod, multicelled, more complex than the flatworm, even though it doesn't seem to be quite as big. Woof! And this is a Daphnia. It's also an arthropod, a crustacean. And they're often used in scientific studies with caffeine and other chemicals to see how they respond. And there's a little Stylonychia in the background, along with Spirogyra. And that is a moss mite caught up in some trash in the pond water I collected from Full Bloom Nursery. Using my new microscope. And it's an arthropod with 8 legs, so it's considered an arachnid. And this is an Cnidarian called a Hydra. And we found this one a long time ago back in the classroom, and there was a lot of noise in the background. And this was before I learned how to zoom in, or before I had the camera that could zoom in. So you see the outline of the microscope's objective. Here's a Volvox, a colonial plant-like protist, and a Frontonia down on the right. And this is a Cynura, or a Cynura, which is also a colonial golden algae, and you can see all the little hairs that enable it to swim around and move. And this is one of my favorites. It's a Vorticella, and it's under high power magnification. They're not real big. The other organisms are a little bit bigger. And this is a great shot of a paramecium. You can see the cytoplasm flowing, the cilia beating. And there's a condylostoma. And they move too fast. I can't seem to focus on them under high power. And there's one, the funniest looking ciliates or protists, called a Euploities. And they are so funny. They look like they're walking on the surface of the trash or the bacteria or the fungus or whatever they're feeding on. And there it is up close. That's hard to believe it's a single-celled protist. And there was a condylostoma and a Euploities making contact. Just feeding in the same area, that's all. And there's the condylostoma and a paramecium. A rotifer on the left and a stylonychia on the right. And another paramecium. And there is a Euglena and some diatoms swimming around in the Ogeechee River water that I collected one time. It was full of diatoms. It was great seeing all of them. And lots of Euglenas. Little ones, medium-sized ones, fat ones, skinny ones, fast ones, slow ones, you name it. And all these diatoms have names too. But this is focused on the Euglena. A plant-like and animal-like protist, in my opinion. One that I would not mind merging with. And there is a free-swimming stentor. They're about the same size as vorticellas. I kind of get them mixed up sometimes. It's a ciliate. And this is a Diedenium. I've only seen that once, and that was a long time ago, as you can tell. And it's a relatively small protist, but it is an avid hunter. It devours other large protists. And this was a dead seed shrimp with what I think might be vorticellas feeding on it. They have stalks and they retract. But these were tiny and not quite the right shape. And there's a Philodena rotifer, the ones that I first called dam rotifers because I always saw them before I saw water bears. And there's another rotifer that I identified called Epiphanes. It's small. And then there's a Lepidella and a Trichotria, and the Trichotria is the one that looks like the rotifer in SpongeBob. And a rotifer is considered a wheeled animal. They're multicellular, but they're still about the same size as water bears and some of these protists, so it's hard to tell. Now this is a gastrotrich, and they are tiny, and they are very hard to get in a clear shot like this. So I'm rather proud of this gastrotrich. You can tell because it goes in and out of focus so easily, and that was probably medium power. And there's a Eurocentrum and another Euglena. I just love those guys. And this one was just passing by at the right speed to capture its beauty and elegance. And this is a very tiny cyanobacteria under high power. And they are blue-green algae, but they are considered bacteria. So very tiny indeed, right there. And those are some of the creatures I found in the Ogeechee River. There you go.